attendance tonight, we have David Phil, Molly Keegan, myself, Amy Parsons, and Jason Kostick. Pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022 as amended, this meeting is being conducted in a remote and hybrid format. The public has been provided with adequate alternative means of access via Zoom, as noted in the posted meeting notice, along with access and participation instructions. As chair, I hereby notify all participants that this meeting is also being recorded by the town through Hadley Media and will be made accessible to the public. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, any person who intends to record or transmit this meeting must inform the chair at this time. Seeing none. So additionally, the virtual hybrid nature of this meeting is for convenience only. The board is meeting in person in a public location. In the event there is a technical difficulty, the board will continue its meeting, notwithstanding the lack of the continued hybrid access. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. If it will open.
It will not.
Oh, no.
I can share my screen if I need to.
So
I've got it.
Go ahead. Yeah, I got it. Okay, sorry. Technical difficulties on my end. One-day liquor license for the Young Men's Club for their Oktoberfest on October 25th, 2026. Intermunicipal agreement between the town of Hadley and the city of Northampton for a municipal hearing officer, sealer of weights and measures, and veterans services. Go ahead.
The fire chief and the building inspector put conditions on the one-day liquor license. So I would ask that you make the one-day approval for the liquor license to include the conditions as well as the regular regulations that y'all put in place on all of their big events.
Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
motion to approve of the consent agenda as presented with the conditions. Second.
All right, motion by Jason, seconded by David. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All right. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment?
No one's indicating.
All right. Moving along to old business 4.1. So this is for the pro-con conservation restriction. This was first presented back in June for us. And I think there was some additional questions that we had.
Yeah, so I think there was an email I was put in the packet. The assessor said, given its location in a floodplain and how it's coded, there's really be no change in use with the restriction. So the value wouldn't change from now until after the restriction. It's considered undevelopable as it is. So
It would still be taxed the same.
it would.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was the concern. All right. Is there any other questions from the board?
So this is granting the conservation restriction to the town of Hadley, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, not a third party.
Right. So it's the town of Hadley and the Conservation Commission with
Right.
both. Yeah.
In which the Conservation Commission approved back in early June for this, they recommended. Okay,
Motion to recommend or accept.
A second.
all right, motion by Molly, seconded by David. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right. All right, moving on to old business 4.2, fire department presentation follow-up discussion. And I think Mike is here. Nice to see you, and twice in 24 hours. Never a dull moment. Yes. And I see, is Bob, yeah, Deputy Chief is on it.
Vacation.
Okay. all, let's see, some documents. Okay. But.
Sure, yeah, I was gonna just,
Oh, sorry, go
just to
ahead.
give an intro quickly. So, the chief and the deputy chief gave a presentation on June. And there wasn't much discussion afterward. And so I thought it'd be great to have the select board, provide comments individually, and then we aggregated them, and there was a, document in the packet. Some of it might be redundant, but I think it's important just to have those conversations and then ask specific questions about, say, service levels and, ideas of what's happening with the fire department. And this could be on the next agenda if, depending on how deputy chief can hear or participate. I think this is an important topic that, is worth the discussion of the select board. And so, there's 3 pages of questions. Some are similar, and the chief hasn't had a lot of time to respond to them. And so, really, this is a chance for the select board to have a discussion, and the chief's here to help answer questions. I know some of the things ask for specific data, which isn't ready now. And in all honesty, it was a lot to ask for. And so that's why, again, it could be on the next select board meeting. So there's a lot here. And so I think, this would just be a good chance to do it. I just want to say, Mike, I think, everyone respects you in the department. And so I think sometimes, we just want to make sure that, this isn't, I want to make sure people understand this is, trying to understand what's best for the department. So I've been asking every department, what do you think is, makes the department function efficiently? So what is the correct number of staff? What do you do? Although we had an override, I want to make sure departments feel comfortable with, their, what they're doing, their tasks, their duties. And so to me, some of these questions are really getting at that. How do we manage within the budget we're given? And so it's a really important piece moving forward for every department.
Okay. Is there anyone on the board that has any questions or comments or anything that they want to bring up at this time?
If we just go through the
Do you want to
general question.
through the general questions? Okay.
I mean, I've had I got this Monday, so I've had limited time, but I can answer a few of them if that's easier that way. So one of them was under staffing levels. So please explain the need for 24-hour coverage with 2 firefighters. I know in the call logs show limited activity overnight. This has been presented. It's just we're already not complying with OSHA standard as it is with a 2 in, 2 out rule. Never mind having staff by themselves overnight, which has always been a concern. I know there's been questions about modifying the schedule, but we have grown by leaps and bounds with our call volume day and night, and the responses that we need to go to really require a minimum of that two staffing per 24-hour shift model. Ultimately, we've had discussions about adding that 3rd person so that we would be decreasing the overtime. And those are the numbers, we did put those numbers together. Previously, we did, the +3, +7, but we're reviewing those and putting those together with the new pay rates and everything based upon we don't have all that staff's not here. So some of those rates have gone down depending on who we bring on board. So we will be working on that. But again, you hired me as your fire chief. I'm telling you the status of the town and what we're responding to. And again, the bare minimum, especially with the call force, the number of call force members that we have and their availability, at a minimum, just to get on scene and to be able to even start an operation. God forbid if somebody's actually trapped in the house. And we have 1 firefighter attempting to do that. Probably heard in Connecticut, firefighter went in by himself because there was somebody trapped and he went through the floor and is no longer with us. So those are the kind of things that we look at as a concern. Should he have gone in? I don't know. But when you're a firefighter and you're on scene as somebody who's trapped inside, you're normally doing it and going in to help. But having 1 person is certainly making it more of a challenge.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, Mike? So are you're talking, obviously that's the situation we're in right now, right? So with the override vote, the dollars were intended to allow you to be able to replace the 2 firefighters we laid off and then also add an additional firefighter?
It was to get us back to the FY 26 level that was presented. So it's, yes, it's the 2 firefighters that were laid off. The 1 firefighter that resigned. And then the lieutenant was part of that original one, but
Yeah.
that again, it was to build out the staffing for each division. So group A, group B, C, and group D, having somebody that can handle that as an officer of the shift.
So when we hire and fill those slots,
Yeah.
at that point, will you be at OSHA standards?
We won't be at OSHA standard until we are capable of, if we had 4 per shift.
Yeah.
We would then be OSHA, we'd be covering that. But with the 3 per shift and then the hopes that an overtime or a call force member or the deputy chief, fire chief get there, then they're part of that. So, and again, we'll get you those revised documents that we had put together. Mike and I had put presentations together for, I think when you were on finance, we were discussing, if we were going to go for one big override and you had the opportunity to put together exactly what you needed for your departments. And we had done that a couple of times. So we'll go back and review that and get you updated numbers on that data. If
Okay.
that works.
Sure.
But
I just wanted to make sure people, we're
Yep.
with the override passing.
yes,
We're heading in the right direction, but that direction is basically just getting us back to a certain.
yep. And, to be transparent, we are going to be meeting with the town administrator, the town accountant, the treasurer, to make sure that we actually know what the number is that's been put into that budget, to make sure that who we're bringing in hiring, that we have the funding to actually do that. Because we understand that the FY 28 budget is, stressed as well. So we want to make sure that we're not going down the road of having to lay off ever again. So we want to make sure that we have accurate numbers for those budgets.
And you're looking, like, when you do hire, you're looking for like a firefighter / EMT, not just at least a basic.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a minimum of a firefighter, first responder anyways.
Okay.
And just for us to be able to start bringing revenue in again on second calls, we need to have that basic. So again, looking at the potential of bringing on board paramedics, we're doing that cost benefit analysis right now, because if you can bring on board a paramedic that you don't then have to send out to train, or you don't have to pay for their training, that's a cost savings. Depending on how long they've been a paramedic. If you get a brand new one, then the contract allows for us to reimburse them, but we'll have that information for you as well. I did start getting a look at the difference between an entry level firefighter EMT and an entry level firefighter paramedic that we have in our union pay scale. It's about $1.52 between the two difference. When you ask the questions about the additional stipends, so a paramedic gets $6,500 a year, which eliminates us having to pay overtime for them to do their training. So basically their training, their certifications, having to pay for their certificates, their renewals and everything. That's all part of that. Plus it's based upon, for EMT basic, it's 40 hours of continuing ed. Paramedics is a lot more than that. So it factors in that time that they have to do that, where we wouldn't have to bring in somebody in on overtime to cover them while they're doing their trainings and stuff.
So
So it's about $3.11 between them if you were to divide it out by 52.2 and add it to a pay rate.
I guess my main concern is I don't have a concern with the staffing aspect, because obviously the townspeople want the 24-hour staffing and 2 people on shift, and we should. My issue is with the ambulance. Speak for myself. I've been hearing for years now about this revenue. Do you remember how much our billings were for the first year when we had the BLS first full year that we had BLS operation? It was like
70 something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're talking about, instead of a firefighter, a new firefighter, first responder, if we're talking about instead hiring firefighter, EMT basics, which with stipends, pay differences, et cetera, we're talking about probably 15 to 20 grand difference a year in salary, right? And so we're about to go out and hire 3 new firefighter, EMT basics, paramedics, et cetera. That offsets that entire year's revenue for the EMT or for the basic level ambulance that was running second call. And from your presentation, it seemed like you and the deputy are full speed ahead with moving forward with ALS, despite what the select board said, which was dead in the water, no more at this point. And it seems like this is kind of, I don't know, an end run around our directive, which was no more, because we're moving forward with the state certification and licensing to go forward with the ALS, which we said, stop, don't spend the money. The staffing plan, which is calling for 15 to 20 or more per employee extra than what we could have with just firefighter, first responders, is wiping out any possibility of revenue coming in from the second call ambulance. And I have a lot of concerns with it. We keep hearing about revenue, but we haven't seen the revenue. I understand last year didn't count because we were short on staffing, so we weren't running the second call ambulance. But the data doesn't support what we've been told again and again. And it seems like that story hasn't changed. This is continuing to be the narrative moving forward, but the data hasn't come in to support that. So I have a big issue with the push for ALS and continued BLS.
I guess I'm not understanding then I understand what you're saying. I get that the numbers aren't what I guess I'm confused because we're only doing second calls for service.
Right.
So if that's 100 to 150 calls, we're just trying to bring in revenue to offset the cost of the department. It's not to bring in revenues to fund the town. It goes into a special revenue account to fund the fire department. So with those employees, they're actually just like us doing inspections and all that stuff, trying to bring revenue in that way to support the position. That's the purpose, because our, 80% of our calls are EMS calls. So again, having these dual trained folks inside that can actually bring in that revenue, for an EMS call, providing quicker response and taking care of patients, real professional level. And I understand Action's doing a great job, but your private ambulance services are here for one reason, and that's for them to make a profit.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter who they put in place inside the ambulance, as long as that ambulance is going out the door and bringing in that profit for them. And again, we've been very fortunate lately with who we have working. But again, I think we'll have data and additional info for you on that. And again, that's something that, Bob, I think, needs to take the reins and lead the charge on, because if you look at in our presentation, we put forward that model that Action gave us. So if we were to go full-time ALS on our own to bring in $770,000 in cash, that would take a pretty sizable chunk out of our fire department.
So, but let me stop you there for a second. From a business perspective, because this is a business, your department is a business, and it has to have money to pay for its operations, and it has to control its expenses. I get the idea of improved care, improved response rate. That's great, and we want that. But when you're looking at revenues to offset the cost of staffing and expenses, it's not there, because what we spend on the ambulance, and granted, Brian did a lot of work, and internally you did good turning the ambulance into something, right? But what we spent on getting that ambulance up to speed, equipped, everything that went into that, plus all these staffing expenses that we're spending, they don't come even close to offsetting. The revenues don't even come close to offsetting those expenses.
But the staffing's needed for the fire department. So that's what I don't understand, because the fire department needs to go out the door for a fire call,
right? Or
they go out for a medical call.
No, but the issue is not the staff itself. The issue is the licensing of EMTBs, paramedics, the equipment, the drugs, everything else that goes into the ambulance that we're having to pay for going forward. Those far offset the revenue we're bringing in with the BLS unit at this point. And I understand that the goal is to go to ALS someday, but I think, I think it's a mistake that we're so focused on this potential $760,000 of ALS revenue coming in because it's not realistic at this point. It's not realistic at any time in the future.
No, we haven't, we're not working on that right now. We're just trying to get back to being able to run the BLS bus out the door because we're jeopardizing our mutual aid partnerships around us by not having that ambulance in place. And while Action is trying to come up here more frequently, I can tell you, I spoke with the chief today because there's a question in here about why don't we just pay the $300, $500 mutual aid payment? Because it's not mutual aid. This mutual aid is mutual. That means if we aren't going to them as much as they are coming to us, that is a fine. It's not a mutual aid payment. And then they're going to come back and they're going to say, listen, Mike, we've come over to you 50 times now. You've come over to us 0 because you don't have an ambulance. So now we're going to have to sit down and discuss a contract because we're not going to keep coming over here mutual aid, charge you $300. It's going to be, we want $60,000 now for us to handle all your second calls. And, maybe that's an evaluation we can look at, but certainly that's something that Bob would be doing.
But I think, quickly to the point in your presentation, I think it showed like 28 or 29 running, getting to ALS. And so, if you're hiring staff now, and you're just going to run second call BLS, is that, firefighter basic, we need the paramedic level to pay all the additional incentives and stipends. And, to me, it's a valid question. It's, like what is the growth in the department and where do we want it to go? And so if for a while it's going to be second call BLS and it can be cost neutral and have the right staffing model, that sounds great. But when the presentation and other things are saying, well, the idea is to try to get to ALS, there was a large investment in the last few years by the town to try to get there and it didn't work out. And so, the town wants a good level of care, fire service, paramedics, everything, Action's in town. And so if Action weren't here, it might be a different story, right? But the landscape is there's this private company that's really is cost neutral given the call volumes they get. And so it's hard to say, well, let's hire 3 new staff at a certain level, thinking that maybe in a few years we're going to try to get to ALS. And so I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing now, the prudent thing now. They can always advance if it needs to be in a few years, but is that really the level we need to be, for this coming fiscal year? And so I think it would be, 2 per shift to me. That's like, yeah, we need to justify that. And some of the questions are, like we said, we hear, it was from the select board and staff. This is what we're hearing, and we want to be able to justify it to everyone. I'd like to be able to say, yeah, this is where we need to be, not just for OSHA standards, but to have good quality care in Hadley. And then this is where the model we want to have for firefighter ambulance service in Hadley to have good quality care, also working in the budget. And so I think it's a really good question. What do we need for those 3 staff that are being hired? It was a limited budget with the override even then. And so, is it 2 or 3 staff, and how do we get to that model? And can it just be firefighter plus basic to run second call BLS for a year or 2?
I think, well, again, the deputy chief will be able to present that when he's back from vacation. And feel free to chime in, Bob, if you want. But the plan, we're not anticipating even being able to go ALS. So right now we're anticipating, we wanted to give you the information on the potential costs if we down the road decide to go ALS, because there's going to be the costs to train them. And, so we're just giving you that information as well.
But I think what we're at, what I'm hearing, and then I think what we're asking you and Bob to think about, because the time to really think about it is at the point of hire, because once the hire is made, they're ours, and we're going to have to fulfill all the terms of the contract. And you started out by saying that you're not clear right now, understandably, with how the numbers that have been arrived at to be allocated to the fire EMS budget, like what that really includes. So I think to David's point, my worry would be as you dig into that, if it's a foregone conclusion that we're doing the higher level, I mean, even $3 an hour by the time you do, overtime and all of that, that we're only going to go to the higher level of qualification. I wouldn't want us to be in a position where you figure out now you can only hire 2 instead of the 3.
No, I agree.
Right.
I agree.
And then if the incremental cost between that really basic level versus the higher tiered level is erasing the revenue associated with the BLS. Park that to the side is, you know, I mean, obviously quality of care is important too. So I think it's, once you dig into that budget, it would be worth noting that, you know, the number of calls that we're likely to get BLS, and that's what I remember, is like 150 or something like that. If we weren't staffed all the time to be able to put BLS in service, how much of a strain are you representing that would be on mutual aid? Like, so mutual aid's picking up an additional 150 calls because we can't get it out the door. Right. I mean, so I think there are two issues. There's the financial aspect of it. There's certainly the service level aspect of it. And I think, you know, the majority of people that I talked to who supported the higher override amount, you know, above and beyond what the finance committee was representing, that voted for the 1.5, they were really, really struck by the safety concern of only having one firefighter on a shift. I didn't hear a lot of people expressing concern about whether or not the BLS ambulance was going out. It was really about the concern for your staff and whether we could go, you know, have the 2 on 2 off. So, you know, again, in the spirit of needing to walk before we might be able to run again, I think that's where the emphasis is right now.
I understand. I just want you to recall, though, that this is what I was tasked with. So I was tasked with putting together this, and I know that's one of your questions too. It's actually in the union contract that was signed that we were tasked with moving forward with an ALS ambulance service. So again, we were doing what we were charged with, even as part of the ambulance, you know, the ambulance oversight committee. There were questions as where that came from. It started when Action moved into their station. We started that plan of bringing on our own ambulance to start working towards our own ALS system to be able to take over for the private, so that we would be bringing that revenue in. So that was part of our charge. I completely understand where we're at right now. Bob, is there anything you want to add?
He muted himself. Hold on. Like, I did unmute him.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went back and forth. So I think one of our main goals, or at least my main goal moving forward.
Can you hold on 1 second?
We have to turn up the volume.
Try again.
Can everybody hear me?
There we go.
Much better.
All right. I do apologize. My internet connection is not the greatest either. So I'll try to go brief. I think the main goal right now, to the select board's point, is to put the staffing back to the 2 per shift and work within the budget. So if that does leave it that it is a firefighter basic, which is what the lowest level that's currently written in the CBA, that is going to ultimately be the goal moving forward. I do understand that we advertised as a firefighter, EMT, or medic, but ultimately we are going to work within the budget that we are given, and also within the contract that we have to work within. So the CBA for the firefighters. But the main goal, I think, of all of us is to just that 2 people per shift. For crew safety, we're able to start heading towards the OSHA standard and NFPA standards. But I think that's, to me, that's my direction would be going. Bigger goal a couple years down the road might be to go to paramedic, but right now it is just getting the 2 bodies back on, and then with some operational changes, getting those 2nd and 3rd ambulance calls, which then will show the revenue that is there.
Yeah.
One other thing that I can answer quickly is there was a question about why have some call force members received letters indicating that they are no longer needed. I have no idea where that's coming from. I have not sent out any letters telling anyone that I don't want them as a call force firefighter. I've had discussions with a couple members that haven't been meeting the requirements to be on the fire department and haven't had the time to do it. And I also reached out to 3 of our members that haven't been responding because they've gotten full-time jobs with other departments. So in an effort to clean up our list for Bob, so that when he comes on board, he'll know what he has. We had 3 members that have decided to step down because they just can't fit it in their time frame. So they've submitted letters of resignation to myself and to Jennifer. But as far as letters going out to someone, I'm not sure who that is. I would love to speak with them and find out what's going on. But again, we do have some bare minimum requirements, and I've had conversations with Bob about this, something he might want to consider. But we have some members that they don't have time to commit to training. They don't have time to commit to go to calls, but they are interested in doing something. So the issue with that is there's a bare minimum of what you have to do. So if you want to be in a support role, then that has to be determined on what that can be, because it can't be going into a fire. You can't have a full beard and go into a fire. You can't smoke and go into, and be on the department, that kind of stuff. And then if you want to be in any method on the department, that's the minimum of getting CPR, first aid, and first responder. Those are bare minimums required by law. So that's where we're at, but there's never been a letter issued since, it's been years since I've done that. So I'm not sure where that came from.
So is, just sticking with the call force. So is there, and again, Bob, I was gonna be falling to you to Mike's point, but is there opportunity? And I think I'm hearing you say yes. I always thought of the call force as kind of like you're either a full call force firefighter and you meet all the training requirements, or you're not. Like that, there's not an in between. Is there room for some sort of gradation of?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying is that it would be a support role only. Okay. So if there was a fire, they could go to the scene and they could change out air bottles. We've had that in the past where somebody's there in shorts and, not dressed in turnout gear. So we know they're not going into the fire, where they can help change out air packs or help roll hose. But again, there's still the bare minimums. If one of us drops on the fire scene and we need somebody to start doing CPR,
they can't go in and fight the fire.
They need to be trained on that bare minimum. And that's, again, we haven't had that a lot because we need our call force members to be able to do fire attack and to be a part of our responses.
So if three, you said 3 call force firefighters resigned.
Yeah.
Is it possible to do some outreach with them to see if they would be interested in that so that you could?
Yeah, no, they just don't have the time to invest
to do
with
anything.
us to do anything. But we are always actively recruiting, and we have the intern program through Hawkins, which has been very helpful. So we have, I think, 2 or 3 applications in right now for new members that are interested, or new call force folks that are interested in coming on board. We're vetting them right now because, again, there's a cost to it. You have to outfit them. We have to train them. There's a bare minimum going through, it's called the Hampshire Basic 6. That we normally run up at the North Station, and that's for all of Hampshire County. That's the bare minimum for them to be able to start doing interior fire attack, going to calls, things like that. That's the bare minimum.
So, because I heard from a couple, I guess they would be former call force guys, that their perspective was they're busy. They still want to do stuff. They want to roll hose or, open a hydrant or do whatever. And they realize that, I'm probably next to no use going into a building at this point. But if I could do support roles, I'd be happy to do that and let the full-time guys go into the building. And so if there was a middle ground, I think we could at least staff those guys up,
We've always appreciated when that happens, even though we don't have an active policy for it, which is something that we can change, because Hadley's call force used to be, you'd have everybody in town showing up trying to help pulling hose off. Right. I mean, one of my first pictures before he joined the fire department was with Nick Witowitz pulling a 4-inch hose line it's right before he joined the fire department. He was an Amherst call force firefighter, I think. So, we've always had people that step up and help, but there is a bare minimum just because we don't first of all, we don't have the liability, but there's a bare minimum for that training. So just want to reassure you that we certainly don't want to lose anybody.
One more, can I?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's fine.
as far as ALS, just so I can answer some resident questions, you mentioned submitting the ALS certification licensing, whatever, to the state at some point next year, this coming year, whatever it was.
Not this year.
Yeah. But I thought it was mentioned in the presentation as far as submitting,
Yeah.
right?
That was my impression when I saw the meeting. It sounded like it was, yeah. But so that was just like,
He muted himself again. So
that's just a future
He doesn't want to bother
Nirvana
anybody.
future direction, that's what would happen if we were going there, but that's not happening right now.
Correct. So during the presentation, it was mentioned that we were mere days or weeks away prior to the failed override last year of submitting the ALS license.
Yep.
That did get put on hold, and that was before my time here.
Yeah.
At this point, that is still on hold. We have submitted for the BLS relicensure at the beginning of or second week of June, and that's as far as we are going for right now.
Maybe it was heard wrong.
Yeah, that's maybe because I thought it said ALS too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was that we were ready to submit. That was ready to go for the end of June.
Yep.
The intent was to have it in by June because then we would have received the inspection by the end of the year. And then at that point, we would have had our paramedics on board and trained. But yeah, we just submitted the BLS relicensure so that we're not, sitting on all this equipment and not trying to bring something in.
Okay. Still hoping to have your staff by the end of the month, hopefully.
We have received a few applications, but again, we want to make sure we do have it posted on the Facebook page. Hopefully we can get Jennifer to put it on Indeed at some point, but we just wanted to meet and confirm what we have for funding as well, so that we don't have any surprises. There were some other concerns with just the expense side as well. I know we were made whole on some stuff, but there were some items that I think were accidental. So for example, we combined 2 call force line items in the budget, but the money wasn't moved into the other line. So that the call force money, there wasn't a way to change it because the budget was balanced. So we just want to make sure that that's made whole again. Things like that. So, and we'll certainly sit down and work with whomever to do that, or Bob will. As far as there was questions about responding, why we are responding to these emergency calls. Again, I presented this in the past that it's our policy that we go to all motor vehicle accidents because of what's happened in the past with people being trapped, fire department not showing up, unresponsive people in the car, and the ambulance, which at the time was Amherst, and it could be Action now, where they're screaming and yelling, "Where's the fire department?" The fire department has a role at every emergency call like that, just as we can't not go to a fire alarm activation at Greenleaves, because I don't know if it's somebody who actually has a blazing fire in their stove or if it's somebody who just burnt their bacon and has set off the fire alarm. Again, we respond not only to support the police department with helping with traffic. We have those lovely big yellow trucks. Driving down Route 9 now is a challenge. There's many a times where people are so hyped up on their adrenaline that when they start to calm down after the accident, all of a sudden all the pain kicks in, and then we're getting dispatched because we have to help extricate or whatever. We do have a policy with PD when they arrive on scene. If they determine that it's no need for fire or EMS, they're calling immediately to let us know that, and we stand down. We have the full-time staff in the station anyways, so the pennies on the dollar of the fuel amount to go there. I think it doesn't come anywhere near the need to have us there to be a part of that. The police focus on, putting in license plate numbers and working on the accident reconstruction and the report. So we're there to take care of the people and to make the car secure. And then, we wait until the tow truck shows up and then we're off to the races to the next call. But I think that has been working well. And again, we can't not respond to it's illegal for us not to respond to a 911 call for help. I mean, we can't not do that. But I think that policy that we have in place, and again, it was implemented by Jimmy Keitsa, not me. because we received multiple letters from surrounding chiefs saying, where's the fire department? So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I just want to just jump in quickly. I mean, some of it would be, when I talked to Mike Mason, he was saying, the two-tone thing, right? Like, is it necessary to have fire respond to everything? Because could police get there and then call it in? And so, if you're understaffed, you have to have call force, you need that lead time to get the call force in. But if you're fully staffed now, can the staff stay, wait? And so, some of it would be, to me, it all goes back to like, can you make it work, say, not within the budget and not have overtime? And so if you have the right staffing and they can respond, that's great. But if, having people go out on call as you're calling people in and and it's creating more overtime and it's maybe not necessary, to me, that's something to be examined, right? Because the overtime budget has to be more manageable in the future. And so if the staffing levels get to where they are with 3 new hires, can the whole call, how you respond to calls be changed? And could the 24-hour be changed to manage it so there isn't the need for so much overtime pay? And so that to me, that's kind of where the question I think is getting at is, if it works and we're not paying overtime, that's great. But if there's a minimum number, someone gets called in and we have a call force get called in because 2 people are out and then they get waived off, the call force has to get paid for a minimum anyways, or someone does. How often does that happen over the year that all of a sudden it inflates, it goes over budget? And so I don't know the answer, but to me, that's really important to understand is there financial implications of having that? If not, great. But I think I'd like to know more specifically how that works. Like if someone gets a call, how many calls are there that happens? With 3 new hires, does it work differently? So you don't need to having other people come in and cover. So then maybe that, the overtime isn't an issue. I think all those things kind of work together.
Yeah,
so I understand the reason why you want to go to the call. It's just kind of financially.
We don't call in for backfill on car accidents. So the crew that's even right now, we have 1 firefighter that's responding in the squad. It doesn't trigger a call for folks to come in on overtime unless it's a major incident where we have entrapment and then we need the extra bodies. Even the call force, normally you're not seeing, especially during the day because they're all working, but they're not responding back either. Because we have probably 8 active call force firefighters right now. So that really, I don't think has been a cause for excessive overtime. The only time that does happen is if they're out on a call where they're committed to that car accident and then a second call comes in, then we have to figure out how we're covering that. So, we do not call in for overtime for a car accident like that. But we can certainly clarify all that as well.
Thanks.
Wow, sorry. Speaking take 2.
Sure.
I had a question actually, because I know even though sometimes there's car crashes and maybe it's not, they don't need an ambulance, but do you guys also deal with fluids as well? So if there's a car crash and even if it's not a human trapped, but if there's still gas and
Yes.
fluid leaking,
Yeah.
so you deal with
Yeah, we have to
that
manage
portion
that
as well.
Yeah, the speedy dry and making sure it's not getting into the storm drains. And
Okay.
when somebody decided to run their car over the top of our brand new culvert cover and rip the bottom of their car off, and oil,
So you have to
same
deal
thing
with
under
that.
time. So yes, we have to manage that.
And that's in the engine and the rescue, that's in
Just the
the
engine will
vehicles?
respond for that because that has the speedy dry on it.
Okay.
If it's, like I said, if it's a smaller one, because we only have the single staff right now, they're just going in the squad trucks. We have a couple pails of speedy dry on there.
Okay.
But if you have a 2 or 3 car accident where you're trying to manage that, then yeah, it's.
Okay.
When you do a recall, for station coverage for overtime, is there a minimum? Say you're on a call, we do station coverage in a half an hour, you realize you don't need it. Do they just get paid for that half an hour? Is it a minimum?
There's a minimum.
Or
I think it's Bob, is it 3 hours?
3 or 4?
Or
The
full time?
union's for the impact bargaining, and then the call for should be a 1 hour minimum.
1 hour?
4 for the union.
4 for the union though.
4 for the union.
Mhm.
I think they follow the same with the police. But then they're like, they have to get approval to leave though. So if
Right.
they're in the station, then they're in the station for,
Until,
up there, reasonable. If we're not, they're just sitting there then. Or if there's no chores to be done or whatever.
okay.
Bob, did you have anything that you wanted to throw out there? That's about all I have for me right now.
No, I think that was the couple of comments that I made, I think were part of it. I'm certainly open to looking at overall moving forward. I have to dive deep into everything, but I'm certainly open to looking at how we're responding and so forth to try to make sure that we are certainly fitting within the budget, but still obviously providing a service to the residents of Hadley and those that are traveling through the community.
Actually, I did have one more, and I'll get the information to you, but the issue with our relationship with UMass, the statement that, there's a disagreement with how events have been handled at UMass, and has been significantly impacted because of the actions of the fire department. I can tell you that I've been dealing with this for years now, and I will provide the information that I had emailed out to interim Chief Mason, because the university has concerns about when we're doing details, when we're doing inspections, things like that. And that's all required by state statute. It's under building code. Building code states, so for example, the latest was that we did a detail at the Mullen Center for a concert. Full house, fully packed, lights out, and UMass EH&S, they have one person that they dedicate to the fire alarm panel, because the fire alarm panel basically is put into event mode, which then shuts off all the fire alarms and everything inside the building, so that if it goes off, you don't want to stampede. And the remainder of the building is all, still live as well. So the purpose of the fire watch, not only is it a condition under your liquor license, because the town of Hadley issues the liquor license, and that's one of the conditions. The other thing is under state building code, if you alter, modify, shut off a fire alarm system, it requires a permit from the fire chief with conditions that he feels is appropriate for public safety. Amherst, they have continued their role of setting up their EMS station to handle people that are intoxicated or whatever as part of the venue in coordination with the UMass EMTs. But the fire watch it's from the Hadley Fire Department. So if something happens there, that person can act on behalf of the fire alarm, reach out to our department, so Amherst and Hadley, because it is a Hadley site, so that we have that initial command and control there, working with UMass EH&S. And that's the reason why we do that. Same thing with the football games. The football games, they have propane for all the cooking, they have food trucks, they have things that need to be inspected prior to each event. And one of the conditions, again, for having the liquor licenses is that we have a fire watch there to make sure, for public safety. I think it's a pretty reasonable ask, but there's been some contention about that they don't feel that they should have to do that. But again, I have confirmed with the state building inspector that they agree. I've been doing all the plan reviews, all the inspections, making sure that life safety stuff is set in buildings that are in the town of Hadley. And so again, this has gone up through legal counsel with, our legal counsel and with Department of Fire Services legal counsel. Our state reps and senators have been involved with this. It was always a mutual aid partnership between Amherst and Hadley. It still continues, but as I had stated, they have now changed the addresses of all of those buildings to Amherst.
I was just going to ask about that.
And they have now decided to take it upon themselves without an MOU, which I'm sorry, but we can discuss that further. But until I get legal documentation from them, which we still have not received, stating that we are not liable of just handing over our delegation of authority to Amherst Fire Department, we haven't been able to get that from the university. We haven't been able to get their determination where they feel that they can do this, where they can change the name of our town to Amherst. And they're citing some language under one of the rules or regulations under the university's policies and procedures that it's in disagreement between our legal counsel, theirs, and the state Department of Fire Services. So that's where we're at with that right now.
Yeah, and just in terms of status, so there were two things. I tried to go back through, I got a file like
Yep.
this, like you, yeah,
Yep.
with the UMass stuff. From the notes that I had taken, for all, because I think if I wasn't in 100% of those meetings, I was in most of them, with town council and all that stuff. There were two things. UMass was still looking for that service zone plan, right? Which
Which
so
is the ambulance.
yeah, but I'm just saying, so that was one thing, and they kept coming back repeatedly asking us for it. And then number two, where I believe we left off at that last Zoom meeting with the councils there, university representatives, was that UMass's director was going to draft an MOU,
Yes.
which I believe he did.
Yep. We have it. It's,
And then then the next step was for us to respond to that MOU.
Yeah.
So can you give an update? Like, so where are we at with the service zone plan? And did we respond to them with specific issues with the MOU? Or we just kind of put it to the side?
well, they received the draft service zone plan. So the service zone plan, which was signed by the select board and when Action came on board, was reviewed by the state group. Then we went into COVID, then we went into us starting our own BLS service and the need to add that additional information in there. So with COVID, there was nothing going on at that point. We have that draft thing that technically Action EMS is responsible for creating, but I did that for them. So that document was shared with UMass, so they have that draft.
But it's a draft. It wasn't
It's
doesn't it
not
have to be approved?
it has to be approved by the state, which Bob is working on the amendments to that now
Okay.
because we're about to change it to ALS, which they said, and it takes months for this to be reviewed. So we're trying not to have to redo it again. So Bob is working on that now, the draft for BLS, adding that. We have some new infrastructure now. We have some new housing areas. So they want to know where our problem childs are. So no longer Recano Lodge, but there's other areas that we have to add in there. So, I mean, again, that will go to the state. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get it back to us, but they have the draft and it's not going to change very much. They have our
Well, it
policies
was
and
their
procedures.
counsel, right? Their counsel was saying, the draft is great, but it's no good to us until we
I
know
don't
it's
really understand why they need that either. That's my question, is what the purpose is for, like, how that impacts our, the sites in Hadley are supposed to be covered by Hadley. They took it upon themselves to do it without waiting for anything from us. So they've already changed it where we're not going to anything. They don't call us for anything. So it's strictly, they made that decision. The email was sent to me with the names changed, that this is now Mullins Center, Amherst. This is now PBTA Bus Garage, Amherst.
Yeah,
And
no, I
Amherst
know
is
the
responding
history,
to that.
but so then the MOU that Jeff Hescock,
Mhm.
I think it was Jeff, right?
Jeff, yeah.
That-
Yes,
So they sent us an MOU
correct.
quite a while ago. And so did we respond formally to that?
No, I made the decision. I'm not,
I'm
that's
only,
something that Bob can review, but I am not returning an MOU in any shape or form until I get what we asked originally, was why it is legal for them to do what they did. First of all, what is the liability for me signing off on that MOU? So there was stuff that we were looking for as part of that MOU.
yeah, I don't think there was great. Like I said, I went through all my notes and the action items were for us to review and respond with any comments to their MOU and then to finalize the service zone plan. So, I mean, again, I'm just my notes.
Yep.
And the only reason asking you to do this was so that we would have a better understanding of handoffs being made and what Bob's responsibilities might be
Yeah,
going forward to prioritize.
I can tell you that the meeting that I had with UMass and Amherst, it was, and that's in the meeting notes as well, that it wasn't a very friendly meeting. It was more of an ambush of myself and the deputy, because we were told very clearly by the Amherst chief at the time that we were no longer responsible for for our sites, and it was quite contentious. And again, working with our legal counsel, sending that information, and then sending the information to, to the state. There's concerns about it. And again, Bob will have all that information. I'm just sharing with you because they've stated that they don't want to cover the cost of that detail that we put together. They don't want to pay for that. So that's coming out of our pockets. And I don't know, I don't think that's acceptable. We are following, you'll get the actual policy that I put together back in 2007 with multiple members of the Mullins Center, and then the revised to save funding. We broke it down into tiers so that it would trigger fire watches for specific events. We weren't going there because of, a musical presentation by band or something like that. It was based upon levels of the number of folks, and then, just what the event was. And that's all part of that policy that you'll.
I just want to be clear, I'm not advocating for one side or the other or whatever. It's just, we've wanted for a very long time to bring it to closure. So it's like, what are the steps that have to happen for us to finally have an agreement with them?
I agree.
Yeah.
So I know, you said Bob's working on this now, right? Or
The service zone.
Yeah.
The update to the service zone plan, will be completed with Bob.
as he takes over, I guess, negotiations with UMass, I just remember that football season's coming up and all the other sports seasons. And so we hold the keys to their liquor license, so to speak. And so there's no reason they shouldn't be cooperating, because they don't want to pay for a detail. Well, what's it going to cost them to not sell any alcohol for the entire football season? It's like, so there needs to be some common sense on their side with this.
It just used to be so, like, I was going back through all my emails and stuff, and it used to be such a partnership. Like we would get a monthly list of all the events that were going on. And I'm not really sure why all this, I don't know when all this was triggered and when it happened, but we've been, again, when I started the mutual aid partnership between Amherst and Hadley at the time, because we didn't have a full-time chief. So basically Jimmy or Myron at the time would get a permit in from the university. They would hand it off to Amherst, who mutual aid would go out, do the inspection, say, okay, chief, you can sign off on it. When I started, we started that transition with her. We started out where they were still getting the full fee. I was working into all of that. Then we started splitting the fee. And then when we were able to take on the whole responsibility ourselves, we started bringing that revenue in, for ourselves, because it's a Hadley property. And again, I'm not making this up. This is under statute. And again, the response side, that's the question. But it's always been, if we have something going on at the Mullins Center or the central heating plant or the stadium, it's going to take more than just one department to respond to that. So that's why it was always it was a dual response. And if it was nothing, whoever got there first, you would take care of business and stand down the other department.
So have they actually changed the address of those buildings, or are they just
zip code?
Oh, so they're not just saying the Mullins Center Amherst, they're actually, for their purposes, they're saying it is Amherst.
Yep.
Okay.
If you search it used to, if you Google search the Mullins, it was 300 Mullins Way Hadley.
Right.
Now it's 300 Mullins Way Amherst. And again, I hope we can work through it, or Bob can work through it. So
I'm sure he's looking forward to it.
we're not.
I was going to say, you might not want to come back from vacation.
Did he mute himself again?
Nope.
No, you're still on. Does anyone have anything else at this time?
No, I mean, it sounded like, she's like, you and Bob need time to think through all of this stuff. So unless there was anything else you wanted to.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure that you have the accurate numbers for pay rates, and again, his plan moving forward with the hiring, because that's gonna be his ball game, not mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us on your vacation.
Thanks, Bob.
No problem. Anytime.
Don't say that.
All right. So we're gonna move on to new business. Boards and committees, annual reappointments. Jennifer did attach where we're at the moment. I do see that.
So in the Excel sheet that I attached has the 2026 boards and committees, and it has everybody that's on all of the boards and all of the committees, even the ones that don't need to be appointed. And then the second sheet in there is the reappointments only. And I can read through them quickly if y'all would like. Or you can reappoint just based off the list, following their terms.
And then did we want to speak out on any vacancies where we're looking for individuals as well?
Well, I was planning on the next meeting, putting together a nice spreadsheet of all the vacancies in town, and then we could start advertising them on Facebook and on the website, and ask the COA to put it in their newsletter and hit the library up.
I see a mistake and I apologize because it's one of the committees I'm on and I did not catch it earlier.
Okay.
Under the ambulance oversight committee, the bill is correct, but it's not.
No, it's
Not Bill Dwyer.
Gosh.
Short figure.
Anybody want to tackle that for me?
SCHW ARTFEGER.
I will officially correct that. Yes. I didn't notice that either because it's Bill. I put Bill Dwyer on all appointments and committees.
Right.
So, and that has to be from last year, I bet. Yes, it is.
It was there too. Well,
Yes.
yeah, I missed it then too.
But last year Rita did this for me and I used her list again. I was like, it's so great. It's so pretty. The color's wonderful. So I don't know what your pleasure is, Amy, if you would like me to read them or if you want to appoint based off the corrected list.
The only change is, and I hope I'm looking at the right thing here, the solar steering committee. Jane is listed as that, and I'd like to take her spot if that's okay on it.
Okay. So that one was confusing to me because I wasn't certain if she was on that as the select board liaison or if she was actual voting member. And as I understand, she has been acting as a voting member.
Oh, okay.
All right, so then I guess
So do we want to have a select board?
2, 4, 6, I mean, there's 7 members, including the select board members, so I guess it's okay.
Well, there's not a planning board member on it. It's vacant.
Oh, yeah, and then Kayla's leaving, so there's not gonna be conservation either. So 2, 4, that'd leave 5.
So could
I can make
they be
that.
additive then?
I can do that as a member, not just a select board liaison, a voting member.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the rest of the board's okay with that.
Works for me. Any objections?
No.
No, we don't want you going to the solar committee meetings.
Yeah, that's it.
So you're going as a select board member and a liaison and you're going as a liaison and a voting member of that committee.
Right.
So just removing Jane's name and putting David in this, okay.
One other thing is the form of government committee, Jennifer. David and I are both on that committee. So 2 select board member representatives.
I have that.
I think I just got grayed out because it
Oh, where do you see?
grayed me out.
No, I don't see that.
You're on there.
You're grayed out because your form of government committee is through completion. Switch over to the second tab that says reappointments.
Oh.
Sorry.
I was looking at the wrong one.
I was looking for one here.
But no, you caught the short for your show bill.
Mhm.
The second one is are the people that are actually due for appointments.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, I would be happy to have somebody make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the the appointments as presented with the administrative corrections the corrections that we discussed.
Second.
All right, excellent. Motion by Molly, seconded by David. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Excellent. All right, moving on to 5.2. The toll for APR company holder agreement. I think we've seen this right before. It was in previous.
Been to town meeting and approved.
Mhm.
This is the final toll holder agreements. And they've also submitted their invoice to the town. Nate.
All right,
I'll make a motion to approve the Topper APR agreement.
Second.
all right. Motion by Molly, seconded by Jason. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Oops.
5.3, our town administrator goals. Take it away.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have much written. I mentioned a few areas I'd like to focus on for the first year. Communication, HR and personnel, finance and projects. And so those would be kind of the bigger themes and have things within that. I'd like to talk to the select board about having a work plan for this coming fiscal year and kind of integrate those two so that we're working in alignment. So I think that'd be something to have for the next agenda. I mean, I have other things written down. It just wasn't in a form I really wanted to share, but I think to me, communication is really important. So, hearing just like what happened with UMass, it's like, we don't know why maybe it happened, but it's like, how do we open up those doors again? Have the communication? How do we communicate better between myself and the select board and the public? I'm trying to do that and come up with ways. HR and personnel, Jennifer Fire said, like professional development is really important. Recognitions of employees is important. Morale is something that's really, we need to work on. And so those are things I'd like to have, as my goals for the first year. Finance, again, override was great. What are some revenue growth strategies? How do we maintain Hadley the way it is and still adapt and change and be able to support, a local small town? So I think, again, things with finance are, how do we work the budget? What are policies that need to be updated? What are connections that can be made between different partners in economic development? And then projects. I mean, there's a lot of things happening. And so how do we focus and prioritize? There's Russell Street School, there's the levee, DPW facility, the list goes on. There's culverts, there's the bridge on 47. I mean, I could probably name a dozen of things I'd love to work on. Some would be, what are the higher priority ones for this coming year? I have my ideas. I think, for instance, the bridge on 47, the town's applied twice for a small bridge grant through Mass DOT. We haven't received it. I think we'll be in really good shape next year to get $1 million or more. I think it will take something at fall town meeting to have some local match to leverage grant funding. We're gonna have to stack grants, so we're looking at trying to apply for federal grants to be able to fix it. The new DEP standard means it can't be a culvert; it has to be a bridge. So it's going to be bigger than just a culvert. But the culvert's failing. How can we get $2 million to fix it? I think we're in probably pretty good shape. Scott's been working on that, but I think we can, really move that. Russell School, I'd love to have. There's been studies done in the past. I don't think we need another study. I think it'd be, I'd love to say, here are two directions we'll take with that school this coming fiscal year, or even the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Try something. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least we try to move things forward. Even for finance, I'll say, one thing that's really important, the planning board is looking at 4DR. So it's a smart growth overlay along Route 9. I think to me, it's a really good fiscal strategy. It brings in housing, affordable housing. It's for mixed use. And, it really is using properties just adjacent to Route 9. It doesn't use any more of Hadley. I think it's a really important, strategy for both fiscal growth and housing growth. And, I'd like to keep talking about that and again, move that forward. If not at this fall town meeting, make sure it doesn't, fall off the wagon and say, okay, well, we talked about it, but I'd rather like to bring it to the people and say, here's why it's important. And if it takes more time to get there, then it takes more time than fall town meeting, but I don't want to just give up on it. The planning board has had a subcommittee working on it for over a year. And so again, it's getting to the point where it's, nearly complete. And I think, again, there's so many benefits for it. I think there'll be a lot of questions. People want to understand it. And I get that. At the same time, I think it's something that doesn't impact a lot of the town, but it has really great revenue generation potential.
So can I ask that at some point, could we have the planning board come and just talk to us about that? Or, and you probably could discuss it on your own, but I don't know enough about it at this point. I just know that it's been a kind of we don't know if we really want this kind of thing from the planning board, and I'd like to hear why. So.
Sure, yeah, the planning board is meeting on July, I think it's 7th.
Yeah, I think I sent the agenda.
Yeah, they just posted, but I think although there's other things on the agenda, they were hoping to spend a fair amount of their meeting talking about 40R. So I mean, quickly, it's a state tool. So I get people say, oh, it's another state mandated thing. It's not a mandate, it's an optional overlay. So it's you have your base zoning, and then this is an overlay, and it's optional to adopt it. And if you do, what you choose to do in it is by site plan review. So you can't really deny it through the planning board. And so Hadley, the idea was to allow denser development, redevelopment, mostly along Route 9, mixed use development. So, first floor, second floor commercial, upper stories residential, 20% of the units have to be affordable. So that, it is increasing the number of affordable units. And you can have design standards and criteria. So you can basically kind of shape it the way you want it to be. And then it's an overlay. If a developer chooses to use it, they would opt into it and not use the base zoning. And they'd say, I'm going to do this overlay. But if they do, you can't deny their permit. You can only put conditions on it. So you have to be really careful with what you want. Does it, for Hadley, is this what people would want on Route 9? I don't think it goes any higher than 3 or 4 stories. Covers like the mall sites, right? You can change the boundary. So, I would say it goes, say from Amherstown line to, they're proposing 2, but, however far you want it to go, right? Up north, south of Route 9. I'd say I'd have my ideas. I'd say, let's try to go bigger. People say, no, that's a bad idea, but I'm still going to say, let's go bigger because I think it's a great opportunity. And so really it's a land use regulation that provides opportunity for new development. It may not be realized, right? You could put it in place and maybe only one project gets used. But for me, it's like, what if we had one project that generates $200,000 more in tax revenue, then that's a win. And so I think there's questions about, what is the development going to look like? Do we really want it? What are the traffic impacts? Who's going to live there? All things that are reasonable to ask. But I think, I don't want people to get discouraged. I want to say, well, this actually is other communities have done it. There's funding potential. So when you adopt it, the state looks at what is your net new growth in dwelling units based on the overlay compared to your base zoning. And so right now we can say that we don't allow any dwelling units in that area. And if we say, well, with the overlay, we allow 500 units, there's a formula, and that could give the town a few $100,000 just by adopting the overlay. But again, you have to make sure, I don't want to say it's a silver bullet, but I think it's a strategy. It's a tool to try to be, examined and used. And I think, the planning board has been looking at it for so long, and I think it's something that is worthwhile, not just to fizzle out and say, let's actually give it a real try. And there's probably other things too to consider, but to me, this seems like they've been working on it with PVPC. There's a draft bylaw. It's a lot to take in. But like I said, I think we have to give it its due diligence, and I think it's a great idea to have the state planning board come in front of the select board to talk about it some more. So I don't, like I said, I have my 4 big categories for goals, and I'd like to integrate it with the work plan for the board, and if there's other ideas beyond those 4, we can talk about it. I like to get, for the next meeting, I'll have more on paper. I have a lot I'd like to do. I think again, how do you prioritize and rein it in and say what's actually manageable in here?
When you, just for communication, obviously that's multifaceted, and it is part of your impetus to do that, to focus on community engagement in terms of getting information out, making it accessible, all that.
It is, right. So we had the first, we call it the morning show with the town administrators here, last Friday. It was great. So it's, those things, and as well as just like, whether it's posted online or through different media, different approaches, how do you keep the public informed? And so, even, my town administrator updates, I'm trying to be a little bit more thorough. And I'd like it with the finance committee to have, more information shared there so the public can hear it. So if they're, if they watch the finance committee after the fact, every meeting, there should be a little bit more about budget updates and where we are. Just again, it's how does the public have that information? It's out there, but you have to dig through it, or, you have to watch a meeting and know when, but it's like, how can we share it a little bit more kind of timely, and how do you engage the public more? So I agree. I think that's something that's really important.
Right. Anything else? Okay. Moving on to 6.1, we have anniversaries. So this is actually we recognize that this past year has been kind of a whirlwind, and we really want to work more on employee recognition and acknowledgement, because I think a lot happens behind the scenes that most town folk don't even see. Whenever something happens, it's always people only notice when something goes wrong. And so we want to take the opportunity tonight to recognize the dedicated employees and their commitment and service that contribute to the effective operation of our town. So we're going to recognize employees celebrating milestone employment and anniversaries that are between January 1st and July 1st of this year. And so we, as the select board, I guess I'll speak for the select board, for all of us, we want to express our sincere appreciation for the years of public service and the dedication to our town. So up first, we have 20 years of service. We have 3 individuals. We have Melissa Roberts Cody from the dispatch department, and in the collectors department, we have Susan Golotsky and Kim Pfeiffer. So thank you. 20 years is a very, very long time. And just want to let you guys know that we absolutely appreciate you. In 10 years of service, we have John Kinchla for the fire department call force and Amy Jennings for Parks and Recreation.
Today's our actual 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, I was going to say July 1st
Yeah.
today, 10 years today. And so for 5 years, we have Megan Healy in dispatch, Timothy Hubert, Council on Aging, Teresa Frost in the building department, and Peter Laurie for the Board of Health. So thank you for your service. 1 year, we have Cheryl Holloway in the assessors department, Joseph Holmes in DPW in the sewer department, Adam Warner, DPW highway department, and Matthew Karen in the police department. So thank you for your service. And yeah, congratulations and thank you so much. And those of you who are 1, 5, and 10 years, we hope that you continue to 20.
If this is something you would like to do, I would like to continue to do it maybe once every 3 months, not every 6 months, but just to make sure that we're recognizing employees as they cross these milestones and make sure the public knows about their dedicated employees.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Great idea.
I think this is great.
Yep.
So thank you so much. All right, 7.1, Town Administrators Report and Town Project Updates. Take it away.
Sure, thanks. This was uploaded this afternoon. It will hit the themes we just talked about in terms of communication, finance, and HR and personnel and projects. So for communications, we did have the first TA morning show here. It was about an hour and a half, 8 to 10 residents came. It was actually really nice. So we talked, try to keep it focused on Hadley, and there were, good questions about projects, the levy, old school buildings, what's happening with housing. And so I think it's a really nice opportunity to talk to Jennifer, myself. We've asked Jason to join us for the next one in July. So it'll be the last Friday of the month at 9:30. And so we'll have another one. And again, it's a chance to get out of town hall and try to meet with the community. I continue to meet with department heads, so I haven't met with everyone. Informally, yes, but try to have a formal meeting to understand, where the departments are. That's ongoing. I'd like to, have, like I said, more regular meetings with all departments and different stakeholders in town. So it's unbelievable actually how full your schedule can get. We have a lot of meetings. And then Molly, you just mentioned, how do you get information out? So we're looking at how to use the website better and different media to share. In terms of finance, the audit's not quite over. It is a really big lift from the for the many departments. It goes through the treasurer and the treasurer finance director. So they're still working on that. We have an auditor who asked for a lot of information. And so that should be done soon. The select board and finance committee will meet on July 8th to review year-end transfers. So the information will be ready pretty soon for that. The finance committee met on June 22nd. Linda and I attended. It was a good discussion about the budget, just general questions. We're looking at doing a training with them in the next few months, covering specific topics at a few meetings to help prepare for the next budget cycle. And so one of the recommendations there was let's have more regular by-board meetings with the select board, whether it's, once a month or every other month, and just to keep information shared. So that's something we can look at for the future. We did meet with the town accountant. There had been an internal financial team, and this wasn't quite all of it, but it was the town administrator's office, the treasurer's department, an accountant met to look at year end. I think a key takeaway for me was that, there needs to be some new policies and updated procedures for certain things. So, for instance, the town applies for a lot of grants. It should be flowing, flowing pretty seamlessly through contract award to the accountant, getting accounts set up, and then reimbursements. And it doesn't happen that way. And so usually by year end, we realize some accounts are out of balance and it's a scramble to figure out that, oh, that was actually a grant and, expenditures weren't hitting the right account. It's not, it all gets corrected in the end, but I think it could be done a lot smoother. And so there's a few instances where, I think having a few policies and procedures in place would, really help with, just time management. Really importantly, the next last bullet here is, the local excise tax incomes were calculated for the quarter and then for the year. And so that's, meals, lodging, and marijuana. And it generates a lot of revenue for Hadley. So almost $2 million, $1.9 million a year. So thank you, Hadley businesses. I mean, it's compared to other communities around here, proportionally to the population, it's huge. And so what those businesses provide to Hadley, this isn't real estate. This is, meals, lodging, and, really, that's really it for most of the businesses. There's not a lot of marijuana businesses. It's a lot of extra revenue locally to the community. And so that's really important. And then, I think the fiscal year end is always a big push every year for the finance departments. And so they're all working together to, balance the budgets, finish things up as of yesterday, and get ready for next fiscal year. So I just wanted to say those departments are working hard and to acknowledge them. So it's, accounting, it's collectors, it's assessors, it's treasurer, it's the finance director position. And so everyone's working really hard to do that. For human resources, there's a few things happening. So the fire department has advertised for 3 positions, right? Either as a firefighter, EMT, or firefighter paramedic. Resumes for the land use coordinator position have been coming in. There's a screening committee. We hope to be, have interviews happening pretty soon. It's a really valuable position. The Board of Health Nurse is also, looking to hire a part-time person there. And so that's, again, these aren't new positions. These are vacancies that have remained, but we're trying to fill them. The Department of Public Works is looking at 2 positions as well. A long-time vacant sewer operator. It's actually been vacant for so long, probably people didn't realize that it was missing.
They did.
They did. So there's 3 employees there. There really should be 4. And then a highway laborer for to fill the vacancy of TJ Mish being promoted. The building commissioner position will be advertised. If not this week, then next. We give great thanks to Dave Moskowitz to be here. He still will remain. He's only part-time, but we really do need a full-time building commissioner. And so he said he wouldn't, he'll stay as long as he can, but he doesn't want full-time in Hadley. So we're going to advertise that. And then all the rate authorizations are getting processed for FY27. So, every year there's step increases, hourly rates, salary rates, everything changes and it has to be, configured and updated. And so that's something that with the accountant and Jennifer, they've done a really great job of getting that ready. And so that impacts everyone's pay, right? So if that doesn't happen, then we have to do retro pay adjustments. And so to get those ahead of time is really important. And so I think will be happening shortly. For projects and initiatives, a lot's been paused. And again, that's where something we could, talk about how to pick them up. The new one is solar on the landfill, what's in italics, so Select Energy has been communicating with the town. I put them in direct contact with the town attorney to try to get something moving. There are some tax credits that, I said last time may expire. Someone thought it may actually be based on completion of development, which is 28. So someone's looking into that to make sure we can still, this project can move forward. And as far as I know, there's still things being reviewed. The town attorney didn't like what they had submitted in terms of completion, so they submitted a template contract and everything. And sure, on the face of it was great, except for it didn't include any exhibits. And so there's been some discussion about can the exhibits be included. That's really where the details are in terms of liability or any paybacks or anything happening with the town and the developer. It may be that has to move fast in the next few days. It's unfortunate that it's been a long time coming, and now there's a scramble to try to get it to work. So that's one. The Valley Bike Share Program, I did reach out to Northampton. So on the back, the bottom of this report is their responses. And so, I think that, there hasn't been an instance where businesses fund the operations of a bike share station. So they might help fund the installation of the pad and the purchase of the bikes, but really it is then cost borne by the municipality for operating it every year for saving bike maintenance or, purchasing of bikes. There is a petition or kind of acknowledgement by municipalities to the state. It'd be great to have those directly funded, whether that's, a state allocation, say through Chapter 90 or some other program that hasn't happened yet. And so, I think what Northampton said is that they're in a grant now and they can help get the stations built and the bikes purchased. Maybe businesses could support them. But there would be a cost to Hadley after that. And so, I think, again, do we want to keep talking about it in terms of, is it something to help people get into Hadley? Will it connect to Amherst and Northampton? We can save that for another meeting, but, they did respond. I think it's still worth, discussing. And just, the last one is the Connecticut River flooding resilience. There's a lot of things happening around that. So the town has received 3 grants. They've been ongoing for about a year. So, assessing drainage ditches in town, culverts under roadways, working with Hatfield to look at what are our priority projects to mitigate flood impacts along the river. And so I think all those things are going to dovetail nicely in the next 6 months when we have reports and mapping and then next steps. And so the idea is some of these things will roll into other future grants. So for culvert replacements, for maybe even like a coordinated warning system along the river. So, I think the idea is that the river does flood, and what do we do to help, the farmers, the landowners, and everyone that is impacted by it. And so, it's not, it's been an ongoing effort, and I think it'll continue to be an ongoing effort. Department updates, I'd like to do those the second meeting of every month, select board meeting. So that's on hold for now. And then I just have the recap of my weekly emails to the board. I just, again, like to extend a thanks to Mike Mason. Amy said it at the last meeting, but he had been the interim for a long time, and I think he'd really helped me with my transition to Hadley, and I'd like to thank him for that. And he's made himself available. He's still the police chief. I think he did a lot in his role. So he kept things organized. I know it's probably not easy, right? But between all the emails and files, things were great when I moved in, and so that hasn't always been the case when I moved into a new office. It was nice. I didn't have to really do anything. In terms of, I just want to mention the human resources piece. So, the resources department was dissolved, and, Jennifer, the treasurer department, and others have picked up the work accountant. And so we're really hoping to transition that to UKG. It's been a lot of work for everyone. And so I think everyone's really stepped up. And I want to acknowledge the staff who have, because it's been busy for that. And so, it's not like, oh, well, we just, it's personal action forms and it's hiring. No, it's, veterans benefits, it's different pay for teachers. It's, all these things that people may not realize. And I think people are starting to feel it. And so we're really hopeful that UKG can get up and running and staff can get back to working in their departments. I just want to mention that is it was a lot of work to you took what really was 2 people, 2.5 people, and put it on a few different departments. And I think people are feeling it. All smiles though. I'll smile. Sunshine and yeah. Quickly, Mass DEP held a workshop. There are a lot of grants out there. It's actually overwhelming sometimes. And so you know, and there used to be a really centralized portal through the state website. It's changed in the last few years, but the town has been really successful. And, you know, the idea is to apply for a few more this fall. I think to apply for the grants to be successful, we might have to start having local matching. And that means going to town meeting for capital requests. And so, you know, I said, I think at town meeting, we might have to have a few of those. And people might say, geez, why are we spending this money? And so I would say is that we won't spend the money until we get the grant. But, you know, when we're at this workshop, what I've heard is that be competitive now, there has to be some percent, you know, whether it can be in-kind labor, whether it's, you know, funding that could be allocated locally, it makes an application much stronger. So, you know, talking with Public Works, there's a few they'd like to apply to, and we're trying to say, well, how can we have it be really competitive? And so there's a few things that we could improve on. And one is kind of this local match. It doesn't have to be a lot, right? But it can be enough to say, you know, we're trying. I think, you know, in terms of my email updates, I mean, they're out there. They're kind of the repeat of some of the same things. I'll just call attention to the school committee. They met the other week. They put a lot out there on the website. There's a lot of hyperlinks in their agenda, but for anyone who's interested, at their last meeting, they looked at, you know, the budget for next year, the school calendar, capital plan, which will be revised, but all that information is available. So if, you know, there's the town website, and then within that, you know, there's the fire department and others sometimes have a nice built out web page. And then there's the schools, and they have a lot of information there. And so, you know, people sometimes ask like, oh, what's the school budget? They have a detailed budget, you know, it's a 27-page budget. Right. You might have to click and spend a few minutes to figure out where it is, but it is out there. If you ever need to know, you know, please feel free to contact the schools or, you know, myself. Really, we want to get the information out there. And so, you know, and if people are having trouble finding it, you know, staff will, you know, we're here to help. And I just want to say that it is there. So I want to be better about communicating that as well, because, you know, come budget time, you know, the school gives everyone a number, but there's a lot of background information to that. And so there is, you know, they spend a long time also discussing how they get to that one number. So it's usually online through their agendas and through hyperlinks. That's it for now. If there's any questions or comments.
All right, thank you. All right. Liaison assignments. There is an attachment. And there's a couple that don't have, I don't want to say allocations.
So I realized that one also had 2, and I'm realizing I put the wrong saved one up, but we can very easily go through what y'all have, because y'all had said, y'all being Randy, David, and yourself, Amy, had said that y'all were comfortable keeping what you currently have. And Jason and Molly were the star pupils and responded. And so they get A's, and the rest of y'all just said, this is what you want.
And I think there are 2 on Public Works. I think mine was supposed to be on Public Safety.
Well, okay, so only Jason is getting the gold star now.
We want to run through the list of committees.
There's 2 on board.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was gonna do, was pull up the current one.
Run down the line.
Yep.
Okay.
So so Amy right now is currently Library, Ag Commission, Community Preservation Committee, Historical, and Library Trustees. Would you like to keep all of those?
In
schools, yeah.
So if somebody else wants library, that's fine, just because I am on schools, and that's pretty, I don't want to say time consuming, because it's not that it's time consuming. It's just, it's a bit, which is good, but it's a busy committee.
Okay, so school or libraries, maybe if somebody else wants those. General government, or David Phil right now is general government. I have you as capital planning and finance committee, and that's it.
You have me listed as general government.
Yeah.
You asked for general.
I see what you.
He's currently has general government.
Is FL more maybe?
No.
Oh, it doesn't. I know. Doesn't matter to me.
So now you'll have solar and you are on the form of government committee as well. You and Molly both are.
He's got a gold name tag, so I gotta give it to him.
I know, right? Front and center.
I'll gladly take that.
Okay, so general government will go to Jason, and then that leaves you with capital and finance. Just those two.
I thought Randy was,
You said that, but that's not what my records show.
yeah, I'm happy to take finance, but Jason marked as finance on here, and I thought Randy had it for some reason.
I thought, didn't Jake have finance committee or no? I don't know.
So Jason volunteered for finance committee. That's what I'm saying. These two responded, so that's what those marks are, and everybody else left theirs up to them.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so then Randy is not here, so y'all could do pretty much anything you wanted.
He's got the library now.
Got everything now.
And then we do need to, Molly, you are public safety, housing and economic development, UMass liaison, ambulance oversight, cultural council, and it says Strong Town administrator, but that is the form of government. And then for the division for Jane was Council on Aging, Hadley Media, Board of Health, Climate Change, and Digital Steering Equity Committee. Digital Equity Steering Committee.
I don't mind taking council on aging, board of health, unless somebody else really wants it.
Molly, I thought you wanted Board of Health.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, you did. I'm sorry. Yep, I do remember that. Nope.
Apologies.
So I can take COA. What was the other one that Jane had?
Jane had COA, Hadley Media, Climate Change, and Digital Equity Steering. The Hadley Media and the Digital Equity Steering Committee go together
Okay.
because it's a Hadley Media committee. So if somebody was taking that, they should take both.
I don't mind doing Hadley Media.
Okay.
Then Jason, were you also Conservation Commission? You would put in,
I put it in as if nobody else wanted it, I would.
I mean, I guess Randy is there. I don't know.
I tried to follow. I looked at what Jane had already, and I kind of just basically, with the exception of the general government.
Randy is always conservation. Do you want conservation or? Okay.
You can. No, that's fine. Maybe I read the list wrong when I was looking.
No, Randy wanted to keep DPW, so I thought we could keep that. And I think he has ZBA,
And planning.
Oh, that's a lot.
which makes sense because he's there all the time anyway, so.
So the DPW, the cemetery committee, the DPW facility committee all kind of make sense to stay together, just sort of like the Hadley Media do. Planning board and ZBA with his background that also, and then there's the CDEI.
But then Randy wouldn't be the Digital Equity Steering Committee, right? That would go to.
He's not, the CDI is the Committee for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which is different than the Committee for Digital Equity Steering Committee.
Right.
So Climate Change Committee, I'm sorry, David, you are going to be the solar person, so perhaps that might be the right place.
Okay. Are they actively meeting?
They are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then CDEI is actually with Randy. Do we want to leave that there? And he is sick this evening. He texted and let me know as the meeting was getting.
Okay.
Okay.
Leave him with CDEI.
Are they actively meeting?
They are. Yes. Okay. And Cultural Council, Molly, that is you.
I honestly didn't even know that.
I think she's just making stuff up.
I really am not. I am reading your committee assignments from there.
Who's the CPC?
That
Preservation
is,
Committee.
It's me.
Oh, okay.
so,
Is that like is cultural council would be a good.
Cultural Council is actually, Molly,
Okay.
unless she wants to give it to you. Or David. Or
If you're
Jason.
happy with that.
I feel bad.
It's, I mean, it's
So-
okay.
I just have COA, Hadley Media, Digital Equity Steering Committee, and General Government for now, right? I'm trying to follow along, but it's,
Just remember when you say you just have general government, that's actually 10 departments.
no, I don't mean it.
I'm like, just for the record, it's a lot.
She will give you a list to go off of.
Oh, I'm.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. I'm trying to write it down, so I.
We might throw a few more on there too, just so.
Listen, just because you graduated Citizens Academy.
That's actually, they got the gold name.
Gold name.
Graduate of Citizens Academy.
Actually, he's not. Randy Iser also is a graduate.
Oh, that's
of
right.
Citizens Academy. I can't wait to see what select board member does the second annual one. So based off of that, it looks like we are all set. I can read through everybody's new postings really quickly and then y'all can vote on it. And I will publish it on the website, email all of you and your new boards and committee assignments.
Sounds good.
All right, so for Amy Parsons, you have Agricultural Commission, Community Preservation Committee, Historical Commission, Library Trustees, and the schools. David Phil will now be the Capital Planning Committee, the Climate Change Committee, the Finance Committee Liaison, Form of Government Committee, and the Solar Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Climate Change Committee. Randy Iser will be the Cemetery Committee for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the Conservation Commission, the DPW Facility Committee, Planning Board, Public Works, and ZBA. And Molly Keegan will be Ambulance Oversight Committee, Board of Health, Cultural Council, Form of Government Committee, Housing, Economic and Development Committee, Public Safety, and the UMass Liaison. And Jason Kostick will be the Council on Aging, Digital Equity Steering Committee, Hadley Media, and General Government.
Approved.
Second.
Motion by David, seconded by Jason. All those in favor?
Right. Thank you. I will send that email out tomorrow to everybody with their new updates.
All right. Moving on to 8.2, future agenda items for select board meetings. I see that there are 4 items already here. Inventory of municipal properties, buildings and structure.
Yeah, I put these in here. These are things that have been talked about. Sorry to cut you off, Amy.
No, you're fine.
I think, some of what, Jason had brought it up, I think had been discussed of an inventory, right, of municipal properties and buildings. And then could this become a facilities plan, or at least an outline of what does Hadley own? What are their conditions? And so, that's something we can work on. The second one was a select board work plan for FY27. So again, for future agenda, discussion of DPW facilities. So I think, at the morning show, and then I know people have been asking, where is that? What is happening there? We had a schematic done. So, I don't have any, anything there other than, to bring it back and talk about it. And then, like I said, new or updated town policies and procedures. So, not only is there for financial reasons, but there's some other policies that Jennifer and I have said would be great to update and get out there. And they don't have to be extensive. There's quite a few already in place for the town, and someone would be reviewing those and do they need to be updated? I think on a bigger picture, there's the employee kind of personnel handbook that had gone through a process and it was never really updated. I'd like to pick that up again too. It would come to the select board at some point, but it's a bigger lift.
Can I add to?
Oh yeah, these are things that have been discussed, and we can add many more to these and figure out when do they actually slot into an agenda. It just
Well, the two that are somewhat time sensitive, I think, because it's July here, is we need to have the discussion of the forum on the split rate that residents were asking for.
Mhm.
And then also as far as leasing town-owned lands to possibly generate some revenue, I think
Mhm.
that's important because come fall, farmers are already planning for crops for next year. So if we're going to turn that into something, we need to get moving.
Yeah, I'll say with the lease land in Amherst, what we had done was we've licensed farmers. So for a grow season or up to 3. And so it is, I know other communities have done it. So I was part of that researching that. So it is something that can happen. I can reach out to the town attorney to see if they have a template or something. And hopefully we can move, kind of quick on that. If that's something we want to do.
That may be something just to put out for highest bidder who wants to use the land based on, if that's compatible with the town's goals.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to,
Well, is there any announcements?
Oh, so we're not taking a vote on that? Right.
Those are just future agenda items
Yeah, okay.
that y'all want us to put on.
Oh, you were making a motion for that. Okay.
Yeah.
A little sleep the switch. So sorry. So the only announcements, actually of condolences for a few individuals associated with the town of Hadley who have recently passed. So just want to express condolences from the select board to the following the families and loved ones of the following individuals: Millie Jackson, Edward Connors, Jane Buffard, and John Gnatek.
Just an announcement that there is a public health alert, and the emergency management director has issued an alert as well about the heat advisory, and it's published on the town's website as well as town Facebook pages. I believe all the departments have it up on their Facebook pages as well, that there are cooling centers available in town, and there are some recommendations from the emergency management director and the Board of Health on how to stay cool and to protect yourselves and your neighbors and pets during this heat wave that we're going to have.
All right.
all right, I'll make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for potential negotiations with non-union personnel, fire chief, deputy chief, and treasurer, finance director. And Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation to conduct collective bargaining sessions. DPW Supervisors Union, and a public meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town if the chair so declares, and we will not reconvene in open session.
Second.
All right. Motion by David, seconded by Jason. As chair of the Hadley Select Board, I state that the board has moved and seconded to enter into executive session. And I state that discussing the matter in open session will have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the town of Hadley. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Roll call vote: Phil,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
and Costick.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.